Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, and in this video we are going to go over all the latest propaganda, disinformation, bullcrap, and hooey out there that's being propagated on you for social conditioning and manipulation. Whoa, that was a mouthful there, but in short, we're just going to go over all the latest news, especially with Trump texting everybody, John Bolton out for blood, Trump tax talks, and we're going to do something different and actually review Joe Rogan's new Netflix special, which I just watched and I find very fascinating, and will give my critique at the end of this video. Now, before we start, I wanted to thank everyone who supports this independent media broadcast by buying a shirt on teesprings.com/store/we are change. The link will just be in the description below. And just know, your support means the world to us and helps us be totally free. So sincerely, thank you again for everyone who supports us through this way. Now, just moments ago, almost every single American citizen currently in the United States got a text message from FEMA, the horrible, terrible bureaucratic organization, as well as the President of the United States, testing their National Wireless Emergency Alert System, which of course no one could opt out of, glaring a very annoying sound to everyone's cell phone, which to me is a perfect representation of government saying, "Ah, ah." If the government could ever be exemplified or represented just through sound, that would be it. And of course, a lot of people were concerned about this, but of course there was a big political debate with Trump-tards calling libtards dumbasses that would rather die in earthquakes because this was a system, quote, for your safety. And you know, if you look at the history of government, they really don't care about the safety of their citizenry as much as their interests that they serve. And I have to say, I quite agree with Mike Cernovich, who is a Trump supporter, who said, quote, "To be quite honest, today's text, even from the great Trump," oh lordy, quote, "was about social control and manipulation. Always remember the structures that, quote, your guy can use will soon be used by the other guy." And other than the great Trump comment, I totally agree with him because this system was actually established by Barack Obama. You know, the president who normalized the U.S. government spying on every aspect of American citizens' lives through a mass data bulk collection program. And overall, I do have to say it is concerning that first the government looks into everything you're doing on your phone and now is sending messages to it. And even though it's a very small incremental step, to me it's still a small step towards a slippery slope that should be met with skepticism. And in other news, why you shouldn't trust government, Dick Cheney is in the news today as it was announced that there's a new movie in the works that comes out Christmas this year detailing the political rise of Dick Cheney, which promises to discover the untold true story that changed the course of history forever. It includes little tidbits like Dick Cheney shooting his friend in the face, which he later had to apologize for, some suggestions about corruption when it comes to oil, his military contractor company Halliburton, the Iraq War, plus a lot more. And hopefully this will be an expose that details the true diabolical nature that was Dick Cheney and not just a Hollywood fluff piece, which we will find out when the movie comes out. And now in other mutated Dick Cheney cousin news, we have John Bolton, bloodthirsty neoconservative warhawk, who did what he does best and destroy more international relations and push for more conflict between the United States and other Middle Eastern countries. This is of course Trump's close national security advisor, who today announced that the United States is pulling out of a 63-year-old friendship treaty with Iran, publicly declared that Palestine is not a state, confirming it many times to reporters, saying the so-called state of Palestine, and then fear-mongered how Iran is showing a policy of hostility towards the United States. And you know, a lot of other people see it a little bit differently than that, ever since the CIA overthrew their government and led them to their religious theocracy that they're under right now. And with Iran not playing ball with the petrodollar being the main opposition country against Israel, this is why Iran has been on the chopping block of neoconservatives ever since their ideology prospered since 9/11. And that's the true story of what's happening here that of course the mainstream media will always neglect to tell you. And now let's get into one of my favorite topics, taxes. Freaking taxes. Such a dirty word. And of course, I'm talking about the latest allegations by the New York Times against current sitting President Donald Trump that he allegedly engaged in suspect tax schemes with his father in the 1990s, dodging taxes with tax schemes which the New York Times says included instances of outright fraud. Now, it's important to understand here, during the presidential election, Donald Trump kept his tax returns confidential, never released them to the public like previous presidential candidates, and now, according to the New York Times, the Trump family is a lot richer than we thought, and Trump might have even understated his wealth. Now, of course, Donald Trump launched back against the New York Times, warning of a defamation lawsuit against them for this article, which the New York Times reported that they are, quote, not concerned at all about these warnings. And to add some perspective here, I do have to say that this is the same person who, when he announced he was running for president, said, quote, "I am really rich." And I don't know if you guys knew this, but breaking news, major headlines, rich people don't usually pay taxes. They have a lot of tax breaks, a lot of tax incentives, and also different ways to launder their money, so they legally don't have to pay taxes. So this story is not a surprise to me. Trump even bragged before that he was not paying taxes, and that, quote, made him smart. Every prominent person, no matter what field they in, they finagle around to not pay taxes, including Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, which she used to collect a whole bunch of money, promising to help people like the Haitians, especially after the 2010 earthquake, and then beating them over the head and robbing them blind, as we documented in this video, which is titled "What Hillary Clinton Did to Haiti," and will be linked in the description below of this video. And personally, my response to this entire story could be best exemplified through this meme. Yep, this meme right here definitely represents my whole thought process on this entire case. And, you know, less money going to government bureaucrats and bombing the Middle East, which most of that money goes to. Prove me if I'm wrong. Again, this is my own personal thoughts. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section below, which of course I answer within the first hour that this video is out. So if you want to be a part of the conversation, definitely click subscribe and the notification button to be a part of the conversation. And that's if YouTube allows you to see it. Now, moving forward, in completely different news, Netflix just released a new special by Joe Rogan called Strange Times, which I think would be very interesting for me to actually give you a full review of. Especially in today's day and age where Will Rogers says, quote, "Everything is changing, people are taking their comedians seriously, and the politicians as a joke." And that's a point that Joe Rogan made very clear throughout his entire special, always bringing up outrage culture and outrage mob mentality that has been ultimately destroying comedy as of late. And it was interesting to see him still be controversial in his own unique way, but kind of tiptoe around it, using the opportunity to clarify almost every joke he made, which was done in a very clever way, which was still funny, and at the same time countered back against anyone who would still be outraged by his joke. He talked a lot about the death threats he was receiving because of this mob outrage mentality happening online, and then, like he always does, very masterfully mix in crude fart butt humor with, of course, bigger introspective topics, psychological issues, and themes, like how people mainly mess with each other because of their insecurities, childhood traumas, growing up in a single mother household, and even laid out very similar perspective to what Jordan Peterson has been talking about when it comes to the over-sexualization of women in our society and our workplace, which, by the way, Vice News made a major controversy when they unfairly edited and manipulated the statements made by Jordan Peterson around this issue. And Joe Rogan definitely brought this issue up in many thought-provoking ways, which I believe is very much needed, especially in a society now that tries to dictate what conversations are allowed to even be had. And that's why I agree with what Stephen Wright said when he said, quote, "Comedians or sociologists, we're pointing out stuff that the general public doesn't even stop to think about, looking at life in slow motion and questioning everything we see." And I believe Joe definitely did that, even bringing up this specific news case where a 25-year-old undercover female police officer was a part of a police sting operation, portrayed herself as an 18-year-old high school student, and seduced guys to give her marijuana, which of course led to felony convictions and just shows you how screwed up our society is. And this whole Netflix special, I believe, is an important social commentary that does push the Overton window, just like we saw pushed by other comedy greats like Richard Pryor, Bill Hicks, George Carlin, and even Eddie Murphy back in the day. Now, I'm not saying Joe Rogan is as great as the legends that I have mentioned before, but he is surely on his way towards that. So yeah, if you get a chance, I would definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, that's it. Love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for a lot more.